Hi, marketers. You're watching the CMO Brand Perspective series at FTA Global Marketing Stack 2025. I'm Rachita Sharma, VP of Client Strategy and Success at FTA Global, and your host for this session. Marketing funnel is dead. The faster you let it go, the better. But wait, if the marketing funnel is dead, how do I drive measurable results? How do I prove my value as a marketer? Today, we are going to talk exactly about this, the fall of funnel thinking with Shweta Iyer, the EVP and head of marketing at Kisht, one of India's leading digital lending and fintech platforms. Shweta, during her illustrious 20 plus years of experience, has driven uh, decades of experience in brand building, digital strategy, and growth marketing. She has driven high impact campaigns at companies like IBM, Vodafone, and Z5, to name a few. At Kisht, she has driven vernacular first marketing, financial literacy initiatives, and trust building in a category where skepticism is high. She has also been recognized as one of the top 40 under 40 marketers in 2022 and is a regular voice in industry forums and award juries. Shweta, welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited to unpack your perspective around the fall of funnel thinking and what comes next for the marketers. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rachita. My pleasure being here.
Great.
And thanks for that amazing intro.
Awesome. So I'll start with the basics, the cracks in the funnel. You've worked across telecom, media, and fintech. These three segments across the years have noticed dramatic shift in the consumer behavior, especially post-pandemic, right? When did you first start to feel that the need funnel model, it's breaking, right? Was there a particular instance, or was there like a wave of transformation that you witnessed?
I think the archaic funnel concept started breaking sometime around 2014, 2015, with the advent of smartphones, with the advent of 5G, internet penetration. I think that was the time when India specifically went through a change. Geo entered the market and disrupted the market with cheap data plans. So the internet was in the hands of everybody. And I think that was when the seeds of this funnel breakdown were sown.
Right.
And then I think demonetization happened in 2016. And UPI adoption started growing after that. So specifically, I think it started then because when demonetization happened, even the ones who were reluctant to come on the digital channels started coming online. They started transacting online. A lot of payments especially started happening online. Shopping started in a very big way. And now, of course, smartphones and the internet are a way of life. But specifically for the Indian consumer, I think it started then with
Right.
5G, with demonetization, with the adoption of UPI. And then it sort of took a sudden leap during the pandemic because content consumption also started happening a lot more on digital platforms.
Right.
People started staying at home a lot more. Of course, we were all locked down, so there was no option. So people then started watching a lot of content, and at that time I was in Z5. So we started finding out that a lot of content was also being consumed on phones individually as users. So that became an opportunity for marketers to understand, to gather deeper insights in terms of the modern customer behavior. But that's when I think the classic funnel concept
The
started
definition got-
coming to
Yeah.
fore, saying
Right.
we can no longer afford to think. So I think these were the significant milestones, specifically demonetization, UPI, and the pandemic.
Right. And especially in fintech, I mean, what we have understood so far and that pivot that has happened, consumer are not just comparing products. There are lots of instances when the consumers know more than the brand, right? They come well prepared and well researched. So they are at the same time they're also wrestling with fear, trust. Especially in fintech, the trust building is really important,
Right.
and education along the way. So how do you even begin to map such journeys when they zigzag in that direction?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Specifically in fintech, the journey is not linear,
Right.
right? So it is a sort of an intent loop, like I call it. People do not walk down the funnel, they kind of circle in loops and then come to a decision. And like you rightly pointed out, customers are very well researched, right? They know which platform is offering loans within a certain time frame, at what interest rates. So customers in this case are aware because they are in the market shopping for financial products. So yes, they are aware, and that's precisely why a funnel thinking will not work in fintech, because beyond a point the awareness is already there. So where do I start with awareness?
Right.
Right. And so you sort of start with education and trust building. Every day there are stories of scams, people losing money,
Right.
a lot of dubious apps entering the market. So trust is the currency for fintech, and that's a way of life. So customer education, reassurance, trust building is a way of life for fintech marketing.
Right.
And at Kisht we do that extensively, especially through our in-app communication, through our social media. And very recently, we've onboarded Sachin Tendulkar as our brand ambassador.
Right.
We launched the campaign 4-5 months ago. And that also, that decision of choosing Sachin as our brand ambassador was also based on trust, right? Who was that face who could be recognized across India, across cohorts, right? Both in the urban cities as well as tier 2, tier 3. So Sachin fit the bill, and he was brought on board specifically to build that trust.
Right.
So that's also kind of helped the brand connect with the customer and reassure the customers about the trust, and also help them through that process of non-linear decision making.
Right. I'm glad you throw in Sachin Tendulkar's example. I think that was a really wise choice when it comes to the financial literacy point. I have a certain questions around that. Before that, I wanted to pivot a conversation towards the great messy middle. I remember when I first came across about Google's messy middle behavior. I think that was back in 2016. They came up with this white paper, right? And we all marketers, we just started using that messy middle behavior, shooting down all the funnel models in our decks, and using that phrase very aggressively in all our strategy. Now it's easier said than done. In reality, it's more than just a phrase. How do you actually implement it in actual campaign planning? And I'm sure a lot of the marketers would want to know, because I think whenever we are talking about the concepts, funnel framework, flywheel, everything looks good on a paper, but how do you actually make it actionable? So certain insights on that, if
Yeah.
you can
So
share.
right now, the way things are going, I think messy middle is an oxymoron now.
True.
Middle can exist if there is a top and a bottom. I think we are agreeing on the fact that there is no top, middle, and bottom anymore. So messy middle, yes, it's a reality, but also the concept itself is becoming obsolete,
Right.
right? Messy middle, so like you rightly pointed out, when it came out, when Google started speaking about middle, I think they were also talking about, sort of breaking the funnel down for intent, for behavioral triggers,
Right.
right? Not necessarily treating the customer a certain way at the top, middle, and bottom. Right. I think that was the crux of the the white
exploration,
paper
the
that you were
purchase, the
correct. So that
turnaround,
awareness,
yeah.
purchase, consideration,
Yeah.
loyalty, that
I
sort
love
of a
making that flow, and,
framework
and
does
it
not
absolutely made sense. Yeah.
correct. So what the practical ways of sort of circumventing the so-called messy middle is through touch point management.
True.
Right. The way of thinking for most marketers, I think, has evolved to encompass touch point management, where we treat each touch point as a separate entity which is cohesive for the customer.
Right.
If there is an offline channel, then that needs to all focus on education, reassurance, trust building. Pan to my social media, which also needs to do the same job.
Right.
And then shifting to my app, that also needs to do trust, conversion, awareness, education.
Right.
So it doesn't matter which phase of the buying journey that the customer is on, whether he's at the top, middle, or the bottom. I think touch point management is definitely one
Right.
way
Right.
to make sure that whichever brand touch point the customer is at, that touch point individually serves the purpose of being a marketing channel, and then as a part of the larger picture, right, in combination with all the other channels that are also doing the same job,
Right.
it builds the whole story together.
Right.
It builds the story individually, and then when it comes together as a part of the larger puzzle, it enhances the story. So I think the messy middle also sort of existed when we said, hey, top funnel channels are going to be different, therefore the communication is going to be different. Middle funnel channels are going to be different, and the communication has to be a certain way. And at the bottom, we will focus on the people who have made up their minds on the purchase journey. We
Right.
can't afford to kind of bifurcate the channels or the communication anymore.
Right.
So journey orchestration becomes important. Touch point management becomes important. And I
Right.
think those are the ways where you can circumvent the messy middle.
Right. But the entire ball game changes when you go Bharat, right? The vernacular content. How do you see that messy middle, the touch points? Because obviously you can't control all the touch points when it comes to Bharat, right? Any example that you can mention what you have specifically done at Kisht, or, at an overarching level, how do you actually deal with that?
Yes, India and Bharat, seem like two entities, right? And India also is many Indias within one country. There is of course the urban India. There is the tier 1, tier 2 phenomenon.
Right.
But even within those cohorts, right, customers behave very differently, whether it's north, east, west, south. The buyer behavior is very different. The kind of triggers that they respond to, the kind of touch points that they respond to are very different. So even if you're looking at Bharat, even there, it's no longer about localizing, right? I think marketing somewhere a few years ago got into that rut of saying, hey, we are localizing and we are personalizing, right? And then localization became hyper local. Marketers were
Right.
throwing around this
We're
term,
just throwing the buzzwords,
right,
and
saying
yeah,
okay,
right.
hyper local and
Right.
hyper personalization.
Right.
But it all boils down to humanizing.
True.
Right? So vernacular is a way to humanize, whether it's India, whether it's Bharat, tier 1, tier 2. It's about humanizing, right? And I need to treat my modern consumer in that way, whether it's vernacular, whether it's English, whether it's through any touch point. So specifically on vernacular communication, vernacular touch points, we take a very nuanced approach. Specifically for our LAP, our loan against property, that we launched a year ago. I mean, that was our foray into secured loans.
Okay.
Kisht made its foray in secured loans through loan against property.
Right.
And when we went into the market, spoke to people on the field, a lot of insights came in terms of how we wanted to fine tune our GTM through local content. And it's not just content, it's also the approach. So we did a couple of interesting things. We started doing a lot more around festival activations.
Right.
There are a lot of local pop-ups, melas. Down south there are
Right.
certain months where some sort of activations happen, which is very different from what happens in a Lucknow or a Faridabad, which is very different from a Ganpati that happens in Maharashtra. So we started identifying cultural nuances as a part of our marketing outreach.
Right.
We started looking at a lot of user aspirations, right? You look down south, Kerala, for example, is communism is sort of a prevalent philosophy down south, right, in
Right.
Kerala. So we partnered with some organizations to have a sort of an outreach, specifically in Gujarat and Maharashtra.
Right.
We identified that the local sarpanch becomes a key influencer in some of these financial decisions, financial products decision that gets made at a local level.
Right.
So we started using the sarpanch as an influencer and started running a lot of on-ground activations through that.
Right.
So vernacular does not necessarily mean that I have created a an ad in Hindi.
Just an ad in
I
Hindi,
have
yeah.
created a social media post in Hindi.
Right.
It also then boils down to a nuanced approach,
Right.
and looking at a geographical angle and a cultural angle, and marry it with customer aspirations, a
Right.
way of their life, whether it's festivals, whether it's politics, whether it's cinema, music, right? Marrying all of those elements and reaching out to the customer.
That actually perfectly answered my question about how are you weaving the financial literacy into your campaign so that it's building a trust and still a driving conversion. One of the brands that we worked with, they came up with a special problem challenge. It's a North Indian centric brand. It's a beauty brand, and they had a problem statement about building the the nuances for the southern market. And when we went deep into the research, we understood the south market specifically is behind quality, and they're not behind the brands, right? And I think that sort of strike with us, and then we had created like a very localized approach. And especially when it comes to fintech marketing, when education is really important, the trust is the guiding factor, because that is the main angle that's enabling people to make a choice, reach out to Kisht for a secured or an unsecured loan. I think all these nuances are really important for a marketer before they are mapping the entire strategy, because we keep on saying omni-channel,
Correct.
but we actually have to make it actionable, right? When it comes to omni-channel, it's not just different platforms, but different offline touch points and what they are consuming, what they are seeing. I think that's a very good addition to the entire session. Now, algorithms. Algorithms have changed the rules, right? We were behind hashtags. The hashtags are dead. We were behind SEO. SEO is dead. Now the algorithm is completely like, keep on
SEO is not
reviving.
dead, huh? Just to interject.
A bit controversial, but yeah, another podcast for that. So in terms of ads, it no longer follow a clean awareness, consideration, conversion path, right? They're just getting optimized in real time. So how do you brief and optimize campaigns when the platforms don't respect funnel stages, right? The platforms are not they don't know that I am at the awareness. They're just the platforms where the content is being consumed, right? So how do you measure your practices, campaign practices, in tandem with the all ever changing algorithms?
Right. The answer to that is, two words: journey orchestration.
Right.
Earlier, we used to plan for funnel based approach,
Right.
and old time marketers, like me, still find it, sometimes hard to shake off
Right.
the funnel thinking, right? But
Right.
then when you, on a daily basis, you're in touch with the customer, you realize that journey orchestration is the way to go.
Right.
And what that means is, I think of it as a GPS system navigating your journey. Now
Right.
I start from, point A, and I decide that this is the route that I want to go,
Right.
that I want to take to reach my destination, right? And Maps has decided that I need to go on this route.
Right.
But then when I go in, there is some work happening on the road.
Right.
So it reroutes me,
Right.
right? And then there is congestion. So it reroutes me again. And then ultimately, I reach my destination, may not be on that same route that I had planned on,
Right.
or GPS had planned on, but it has rerouted me several times
Right.
on the way.
Right.
So marketing also has to function that way,
Right.
right? Through journey orchestration,
Right.
where I take into account behavioral triggers, right? Intent based signals
Right.
that the user is throwing at me. Because, like you rightly said, platforms are also not taking into account the traditional funnel approach.
True.
Right? It entirely is based on user, it's driven from the user.
Right.
So again, when we shop, I'm looking at one shoe, and I know that next day I'm going to see those ads wherever I go. I'm going to get a WhatsApp message, even though I have made no attempt to actually reach out to the brand, right?
Right.
And that is how the brands also reach out to the customers based on the signals that the user is throwing.
Right.
It's not whether I classify the customer as top, mid, bottom, but it is in terms of what my consumer is searching for. Right? Are there searches around a financial product? Is my user searching for education, renovation? Right? What are the surround triggers? What are the behavioral based intent
Right.
that my user is throwing at me? Campaigns are sort of tailored to that approach, right? So specifically on Kisht, when somebody drops off, someone completes the onboarding, right? Someone is has completed KYC, right? And that user has not come back, right? I cannot assume that it's a mid funnel user and sort of take that an approach saying, hey, I can give you a better offer, and attempt to move the person down
Towards
the
the funnel,
right?
The traditional roles.
Correct.
Yeah.
The attempt then is to educate. The attempt at that stage is to say, hey, if I do X, Y, and Z, this is what I get.
Right.
Right? This is, and that's done in a very transparent way, again, to educate and build trust. Right. So at every stage through that journey, and it's a mental conditioning to say journey. We should now call it a loop.
A loop of ads, a loop of search behavior, peer influence,
Absolutely.
offline contextual nuances that you mentioned. I think it's all
Correct. And communities. I think we
communities,
don't give
right.
enough credit to community.
Right.
And that's sort of taken off after WhatsApp has become a way of life, right? So everything happens on WhatsApp. There is no distinction between professional communication versus personal. Everything is on WhatsApp, and communities are a big influencer in the
Right.
journey. And
Right.
that somehow has not come into the marketing mix for a very long time.
Right. Talking about the the loops. So traditional KPIs, or the metrics that we were looking at, like CTR, funnel drop offs, right? Now I don't think they've makes sense, because the correct example that you gave, if someone has actually signed up, I don't have to assume that it's a mid funnel. I have to educate. I don't have to push them with the salesy, communication and bringing them at bottom funnel. So now, what are the signals or metrics then one should rely on to understand, whether a journey is really working?
So metrics also have sort of divided themselves logically, right?
Right.
There is a reporting metric that I use, probably, that I say, hey, my impressions were this much and my CTR was this much, right? Those are the traditional metrics. But if I were to sort of really measure marketing effectiveness, it would be the depth of engagement. Right. For example, if I look at an EMI calculator, if the user has come to the page, it doesn't mean she has engaged with the page.
Right.
It's a hit on the page. But if I know that she has spent 2-3 minutes on the EMI calculator, if I know that she has read through my FAQ section, then I know that marketing has done its job, because
Right.
the depth of engagement
Right.
has deepened, right? Because the user has spent time exploring the brand, right?
Right.
Are there organic searches for the brand,
Right.
right? Is there depth of engagement? Is there a reshare,
Right.
right? Is there a repeat
Right.
business coming out of a user? Because it's not about conversions, right? Conversion is very superficial.
Right.
It is retention, it is loyalty, where a user keeps coming back for more, right? That's when you know marketing has done its job, and that's the metric that we need to chase.
That's indeed a powerful metric, because a depth of engagement, because from a performance marketing landscape, we are looking at a cost per user acquisition, or LTV, right? But there are a lot of enablements that lead to a certain improved LTV or a CAC over the long term. I think depth of engagement should be added,
Yes.
in our key reports, and there has to be an addition, a proper definition that needs to be mapped across, because I think we all as marketers keep on looping in the same CTR drop-offs and the clicks and the leads. But I think we need to go a bit deeper into how we are looking at the metrics.
Right.
Now-
And slowly, if all marketers start demanding that,
Right.
then the platforms are also sort of conditioned to show us that. See, Google Meta, I mean, it's a hot take, it's an unpopular opinion, but they, beyond a point, show you what you want to see.
Right.
And when
Right.
marketers were chasing,
Right.
impressions and clicks, Google gave that to you, Meta
Right.
gave that to you, right? But
Right.
now, if the marketers start demanding engagement metrics, then the platforms are also likely to start measuring that.
Right. And I think Google is doing that I think every quarter they are bringing in a lot of betas. They open it for certain markets, and they are really going deep in terms of the cross platform objectives, specifically to your digital journey. So I think that's a great area that, we are yet to explore. But I'm sure the entire traditional KPIs metrics that we have been doing so far till now, I think that's going to completely change in the next 2 years, if I'm not wrong, for sure. Now, I've seen some teams, we're talking about the rethinking about the future of journey. So in terms of the marketers and the teams working, they're either over engineering the funnels, right? As traditional marketers, we keep on going back to a proper funnel, but obviously we have to keep on optimizing our thinking as well, and they're over engineering those funnels with dozens of stages, or oversimplifying them into a straight line, right? From your experience, what's the biggest trap marketers fall into when they try to fix the funnel? Double quoted, fix the funnel. Yeah.
There is no funnel to be fixed,
Right.
right? So you need to repaint the funnel, or you need to probably hack the funnel out. But I think one way to sort of approach this is to prepare for the funnel but execute for the loop.
Right.
Right. I mean, when the concept of funnel came in, uh, and again, that was the early 2000s. That sort of helped streamline the life of a digital marketer, right? And at that point in time, it was essential,
It made
right?
sense. Yeah.
We can't badmouth the funnel sitting here in 2025, because when the funnel came in, it was a very pertinent way of
Right.
thinking that changed the way a marketer, specifically a digital marketer, thinks.
Right.
Right. And that was when there were fewer channels. There was offline, there was traditional channels, and the
Right.
digital channel. But now there is so much that you can't really think in terms of the funnel. And funnel now, in retrospect, I like to believe that it was constructed from a marketer's point of view, right? So
To make
it
our
was
life
done to
easy.
streamline
Right.
my way of
I
working.
agree. Right.
Maybe not necessarily to serve the customer,
Right.
but now with the customer being completely empowered, customer being so aware,
Right.
you have to design campaigns for the loop. You have to design for a non-linear journey, break the funnel, and sort of self-police. And I say that from my personal experience, because
Right.
I was one of the early funnel marketers. And I was in IBM, and IBM is like the university of marketing, right?
True.
It kind of teaches you to reimagine marketing in a way, a lot of organizations don't do. So when the funnel first came in, and we were building consumer maps and journey maps and campaign maps, right? you know I, so it kind of got internalized. The whole thinking that this is how structured marketing should be
Right.
got very internalized. And over the last 7-8 years,
Hmm.
every time I catch myself thinking like a traditional marketer, saying, hey, this is top funnel, this is middle funnel, and this has to be a bottom funnel
Right.
messaging, I self correct, I self police, saying, okay, funnel does not exist, don't say that.
Right.
So there is a lot of self policing involved, saying, okay, there is no funnel, so you have to reimagine. And I think it keeps the marketer on her toes to think from the point of view of a funnel, and then say, okay, but redesign it. It also helps you reinvent, and it also helps you be that lighthouse for the people who are starting their marketing journeys. Because
Right.
I catch myself telling my team, hey, this is middle funnel, and then I self correct and say, okay, but what's the user doing?
Right.
At what stage is the user at?
What's
Need
the
not
loop
be,
is in?
yeah,
Right.
it need not be a funnel stage.
Right.
It can be a behavioral attribute.
Right. Great. I think you have summed up the entire, the fall of funnel thinking and the evolution that has happened. I have a fun rapid fire for you. My team doesn't know, but I think we're going to shoot this and we're going to repurpose it separately for our content. Now, it starts now. If you could go back and redo one campaign from your early career with today's tool and mindset, which one would it be and why?
Very hard to say because I've been very proud of what I've done. But I think earlier in my career, we were handling a fashion brand. Right. And of course, fashion is all about communities and it's all about influencers. So I would go back to rebuilding that fashion brand in today's context with
Right.
a lot more content, with a lot more influencer intervention.
Right. Great answer, actually. And there's a lot of possibility to doing that. Now, what's the most unexpected or bizarre customer journey you've ever seen? One that completely broke the funnel logic.
What completely broke the funnel logic was at IBM, where we followed a very strict funnel concept. In terms, even teams were divided as top, middle, and bottom funnels. We took it that seriously, and we assumed that when AI came in, specifically when IBM Watson
Right.
was launched in India,
Right.
to the enterprise customer, we were sort of under the false assumption that everybody knows AI, right? We are talking to people who understand technology. We are talking to heads of businesses who know how AI functions,
Right.
who are likely to be, far more open to looking at a tool like Watson. But that was when the funnel thinking broke for us, where we realized that even to a tech customer, even to an enterprise customer, there was a lot of trust and awareness building that was required.
Right.
And we couldn't function under the assumption that, because it's a tech customer, they would be, sort of a little more receptive
Right.
to looking at IBM Watson. There was a lot of trust deficit against artificial intelligence as a concept.
And I think that campaign was way ahead of its time.
course.
Like we were, I think I had just started my marketing journey, and we were supposed to look at the conversation that's happening around IBM Watson. And I think at that time I was working with Willis Towers Watson. I think some kind of campaign strategy we had to, and we were looking and we were not understanding what is this all about, but that was a revelation.
Yeah, and then we had to go back to the drawing board and redesign our campaigns with a local flavor, with pop culture. So we did so much with music and fashion and cricket and Bollywood.
Right.
And that's when Watson started taking off.
Right. Now, you have championed vernacular marketing. Have you ever come across a regional campaign insight or line that surprised you with how powerfully it worked?
So, one of the lines when we were launching our Ring brand, right? One rut that marketers fall into is sort of get into, translating every aspect of the creative, right? Saying, if there is a word being said in English, it has to be translated in the local language, right? But when that literal translation happens, it sort of falls flat, right? So when we were working on the campaign theme, we said we will retain ring as ring, right? And we used it as a verb. And we said sapno ko ring karo, right? So and that kind of translated across languages, where we said we changed the brand name to be a verb and said sapno ko ring karo. There is no such thing as sapno ko ring karo, but it had a positive connotation and it was accepted across geographies, where we retained ring as a verb and not as a brand name. And wherever, so then ringing in your dreams, sort of started having a very, very positive connotation there.
Right. I wonder what would have been the literal like translation.
You don't want to know.
I don't want to go there. Yeah. Okay. Now, if the old funnel was a person, what kind of character would they be? And what about today's messy middle consumer?
What character?
What
like
character?
You mean from...
Any film character, it's an open imagination.
Very tough to answer. Maybe George Orwell would be, the funnel in terms of, following a certain pattern, following a certain, in the box sort of a thinking.
Right.
So, yeah.
I just have my last rapid fire, and it has to be quick. Funnel or flywheel? Or you can say
Flywheel
neither.
for sure.
Brand or performance?
Brand.
Research or instinct?
Research, definitely.
What's harder, winning trust or keeping it?
Keeping trust.
Awesome. So that sums up our entire session on follow funnel thinking. I think I thoroughly enjoyed the entire conversation.
Likewise, Rachita.
I'm just making my notes. I can create like 3 to 4 blogs out of this conversation, and
We're
we'll
happy to
publish.
contribute.
Yeah, right. And because there's so many nuances that you added to the entire conversation, and for me as a marketer, a lot of learning I'm taking because I have to pivot myself from the old funnel thinking, right? So thank you so much for your time, Shweta.
My pleasure.
Right. I hope you had a good time conversing on this topic.
Always fun to have a conversation about your craft.
Right. And to everyone watching, stay tuned because we have a lot to cover. And don't forget to put your comments in the comment below and chat box or whatever it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.